But Barry, didn't you say you're going back to the dining room to do some research? Why on earth are you here?
Netflix, what a Netflix it is! Speaking of a Netflix has reportedly commissioned a Resident Evil series, which is something that really perked up my ears when I heard that. Anywho, Resident Evil has had, well, let's just say, a troubling time on the big screen. And at the same time, it hasn't. Critically, they have suffered, but I guess they've been making enough money to make several sequels over the past God knows how many years. But not so long ago, the film series concluded with the last film, Resident Evil: The Last Chapter. No, seriously guys, this is definitely the last one. Unless it isn't. Then we'll definitely make another one. And now we have a Resident Evil Netflix series on the horizon. Well, sort of on the horizon. So, here is a new chance to bring the beloved Resident Evil video game series to a cinematic format. And Netflix seems to have quite a mixed track record when it comes to their original content. So really the fate of this project could go either way. And let's be honest, for those of you who are familiar with the Resident Evil game series, you'll know they also haven't had a perfectly stellar track record. Remember this? Remember it? But for the most part, the games have been very enjoyable over the several decades they've been around. So following this announcement, we came up with a list of 5 things we want to see in a Resident Evil Netflix series. Good writing is definitely something I couldn't say about the Resident Evil film series. That being said, I couldn't say that about every Resident Evil game either. We think the difference between the two are the characters and how memorable they are. I can't remember anyone from the film series, except for Jorah, because he's Jorah, and I only remembered that when I came across his profile on IMDb. What the hell? Resident Evil? Jorah, what the hell were you doing in Resident Evil? Answer me! A TV series needs good writing to keep us coming back for each episode. And if it's shit, ain't nobody gonna wanna binge watch this garbage. We need intriguing plots, interesting characters, and interesting character motivations. You get the writing down, then you're already off to a good start. The question is though, how far do you take the craziness? Both the film series and the games love to indulge in the insane moments. Remember the giant fucking spider? Remember the giant fucking snake? I definitely remember them. You could have a whole series with a Chris Redfield type character dealing with biological weapons, zombies, all that shit. That could be pretty interesting. Or you could set the series in Raccoon City and we get to witness the eventual fall and destruction of the city. Whichever way they go, good writing is essential to any piece of storytelling. We heard a rumour that this series may be connected to the film series, and this had me worried. But I didn't feel completely hopeless for the show. If they do decide to have this show connected to the film series, then I think the best possible way of dealing with this is for them to try and distance themselves in terms of writing or tone or style, but they need to make this show look and feel completely different to the film series. Those films have definitely not been enjoyed largely by critics and fans. I don't want to get too far into what's wrong with them, but they're a mess. If they don't, then they could turn off a lot of people from the show with how much it looks like its movie counterparts. Pretty self-explanatory. The Resident Evil game series got its big start by being fucking terrifying and doing things that no other video game was doing at that time. And they didn't stop there. Many more tense and terrifying installments were soon to follow. Not every installment in the series has been scary, but like any long-running franchise, you're gonna get some duds. But for a first-time TV series, Resident Evil needs to be scary, or at the very least, tense and unnerving. It's what comes to mind of most people when they think Resident Evil. It's become part of the franchise's identity. for the most part. Now, I admit it might be pretty hard to keep a level of terror throughout an entire season of television, but that's okay. Not every episode needs to have you cower behind your pet while you watch it. And there have been some great horror TV shows of late. The Haunting of Hill House, for example. Of course, if they decide to bring in some of the more fantastic elements into the series, remember the giant fucking spider? Then the horror of the show could be lessened somewhat. Okay, so a giant fucking spider is actually quite horrifying. But I'm not afraid of a giant snake. If 12-year-old Harry Potter can kill one by awkwardly pointing a sword and waiting for the snake to politely place its head onto it, I think I can do the same. I'm not impressed, Potter. I mentioned this earlier when talking about good writing, good, interesting characters. If we don't like or are interested in these characters, then we aren't motivated as an audience to keep watching. We lose interest. And in a world where we are overloaded with content, you better make sure you do all you can to hook an audience, because otherwise they'll just go off and watch one of the other million things that are out there. Here's some examples. Fuck, that's a lot. Some of the most successful shows today have strong, well-written characters, and that's part of their success. Speaking of characters, I'm not sure if we're getting whole new original ones, but it would be nice to see some classic characters from the game series. Even if it's just a cameo. You know, you could chuck in like a Chris Redfield, a Claire Redfield, or a Leon, or a Jill Valentine, or a Wesker. Not that one, but a better one. And finally, the most important thing this show needs to include, a thing that if it is missing will ruin the entire show, a masterpiece in writing and line delivery. This show needs to include this.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
So they are some of the things we would like to see in a Resident Evil show, but what about you? Tell us what you would like to see in the Resident Evil show. And also, why not count how many times I just said Resident Evil in this bloody video? You know when you say a word over and over again, and then it doesn't sound like a word anymore? It just becomes like a noise? Yeah, that's Resident Evil for me right now. And if you enjoyed this and you don't mind listening to this terrible voice, and you want to help the channel grow into something beautiful, then why not give us a like and subscribe as well? Go on! Alright, cheers guys, thanks for watching.